I want to apologize for,
Okay, that's better. I want to apologize to everyone that showed up yesterday. I did end up showing up, but what happened was, basically, make a long story short, my computer's a piece of shit, and there's about a 10 to 15% chance when I restart it that it just won't start back up again, and I wasn't thinking, and I restarted it because it was running slow, and I couldn't get it to start up. And I couldn't get it to start up until around 8:30, which is when I got into the chat room, and almost everyone was gone. Aside from classic prank calls and the golden phone. I mean, I thank you two guys for sticking around, and Lex Luger showed up for a couple minutes too. I want to thank everybody that showed up, and like I said, I apologize. There was nothing I could do. I was sitting here really pissed off, because I knew a bunch of people would show up and I wouldn't be there. So, right up front, I apologize for that. What I was going to do, I mean, you didn't miss an event. The only thing I wanted to do there was for people interested in participating, simply to discuss ideas, because I have some basic ideas, and a lot of you that have asked I've sent private messages to, so you guys already kind of know what I'm thinking. But I really just wanted to get together and discuss and come up with some of the events with people that were participating and things like that. Also, I'm congested right now, so if my voice sounds weird, that's why. My allergies are killing me right now. For those of you who don't know that I haven't sent a message to, Buffy101 had sent me a private message that he had this idea for some sort of prank call thing inspired by some of the big comic book crossover things like Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I understand because I'm a DC fan. Going from a Marvel perspective, I was also thinking of like the Secret Wars, so I kind of combined the two into one. And that's just the title I picked. You can really do anything with that title. My idea was a combination of different things. What I was thinking was there would be some basic overarching storyline, which could be a big reality-spanning thing, or whatever seems appropriate. Really what it's about is prank calls and doing some new things with them. So between me and a couple other people I spoke to, what the general idea was is you have a series of events. I mean, I don't know how many. That was one of the things I figured we would have discussed. But each event will have certain guidelines. For example, one event might have a thing where you have to use one specific quote-unquote character, like one celebrity or one victim or something, with an emphasis on celebrities and victims that haven't been used much in a long time, or haven't gotten used much at all, or are fairly new and not being used a whole lot, that kind of thing. Another event may specify that you can use whatever celebrity or victim or whatever you want, even if it's an overused one, but there may be a stipulation to make it a little bit more interesting, like you may have to use some variant, like a high or drunk variant, for that event. And there's no rule regarding what soundboard you can use specifically, so if you want to make your own soundboard for an event, as long as it follows whatever guideline or stipulation for that event, it's fine. So if one event, and I'm not saying we should do this, this is all just purely examples I'm giving. If one event says you have to use, say, the Chinaman, again, I'm not saying that that'll be anything, I'm just making something up off the top of my head. But if one event is like everyone has to use the Chinaman, that wouldn't have any kind of stipulation on what board you had to use or what style, just that you have to use that character. So people can make their own boards, or they can make variants of the character, use mix lines, whatever they want to do, as long as it follows the rule for that event, which is that particular character. Or it may even be something a little bit more broad, like, use an Asian character or something. And the point is to get people using some boards and characters and things like that don't get used much. So making your own board is fine. I thought that would be one of the good things with this event too, is we might get some new soundboards out of it from people. And then, as I said, just purely as an example, another event might be you have to use a variant of a board that is like drunk or high or in some way intoxicated. So that would be the only guideline. Otherwise, you could use any board you wanted to, or any character you wanted to, or whatever. So if you take some character that doesn't have a board that sounds drunk or high, you can make one. Or you can use one of the ones that already exist, like, Drunk Tom or High Chinaman or whatever. Or one event might be you have to use a quote-unquote evil character, so, Satanic Racist would be an evil character. Or you could do a variant like, in the little trailer I made, I did a couple of sample lines of an evil Fred Rogers, and I have a few more sample lines like that, so if someone else wanted to work on that, I could supply them with a few lines that I made. They could make their own whatever. And so those are just some basic ideas, and what I'm hoping that'll accomplish is it'll get people making some calls with some characters and boards that don't get used as much as they should, so that you're not hearing the same kind of calls over and over. You're getting something a little new. The boards that do get used a lot, people can use in certain events, or those characters, I should say, but they may have to use interesting new variants of it. So you'll get a lot of new type of calls, a lot of creative calls that you wouldn't hear otherwise. Plus, we may get some new soundboards out of it, some new variants of soundboards, some new characters, all kinds of stuff. So, the more people participate, the more creative new types of calls we get to hear. Maybe the more new types of soundboards and things we'll get to hear. And then beyond that, I was inspired by, if you've ever been on some of these online forums where they'll do something like a continuing storyline where somebody starts a story and then the next poster makes another, the next entry to the story, and it goes on and on. My idea, and again, this is just purely my idea, the whole point of having the discussion was for other people to throw their ideas in. Maybe somebody else has a better one, or several better ones. This isn't my event. I want this to be for everybody. I want it to try to reinvigorate the whole prank call community and get things going, make it fun and popular again. But my idea was to have one overarching storyline that ties all of this together and explains the events. So for instance, if one event is all Chinamen, again, that's just an example, I'm not saying that's something we'll do, but if one event is all Chinamen, then there would be something in the plot explaining why Chinaman is making all these calls or interacting with all these people. Or if one is all intoxicated characters or all mean characters or something like that, then at that point in the storyline, so to speak, there would be some overall reason why all of the characters are in some way intoxicated. Maybe the events of the storyline have depressed a bunch of them and they're high or drunk and making calls. Or if it's all evil characters or, variants of evil characters, there might be a reason why they're all making calls at this point in the story. So there would be this overall plot arc that explains why each individual event is happening. But even beyond that, the individual call that you make, you can flesh out the story just in that regard. So, for example, if it's the event where it's all evil characters, and you say, well, I'm going to make an evil Fred Rogers board and call with evil Mr. Rogers, then when you make the calls, then you can come up with part of that storyline and how it ties in with the overall story. And of course, what other people do with their calls, in terms of tying it into the story, could affect what you say on yours as well. So if in a previous call or a previous event, Satanic Racist started using his voodoo powers to turn against the main bad guy, not because he's a good character, but because he wants the power for himself or something, then when you make these calls, you could say, in this call what's happened is the Satanic Racist has used his evil voodoo to resurrect and mind control Mr. Rogers to fight for him, or something like that. And so once the entire thing is done, hopefully what you'll be left with is a lot of new types of calls, a lot of, new styles of calling, things people wouldn't have done before, and hopefully a lot of new soundboards, and you'll get kind of a, hopefully, fun storyline. And when it's all done, I'm hoping we can string all the calls together into, a couple of volumes of videos that you can watch all together and get a complete storyline and a bunch of calls. Since I fucked up the chat, I've made a group. Look in the description. There is, an address there. It's youtube.com/group/pranks on infinite. Well, Pranks on Infinite Ert. Apparently it cut off the H. But that's great. Thanks, YouTube. Anyway, I hope everyone will participate that can. Even if you're not planning on making any calls, feel free to join and throw your ideas in, because you might have some good ideas.